They called her the unbreakable brat. Bella Sterling, the heir to a $5 billion empire, had chewed up and spit out 12 professional handlers in 6 months. Navy SEALs, Oxford-educated psychologists, stern British nannies. None lasted more than a week. Her father, Arthur Sterling, was the most powerful man in New York, but he was powerless against his own child. He was ready to give up. Then walked in Sarah, a broke single mom with ketchup stains on her apron and zero patience for entitlement. Everyone expected Sarah to be fired in 10 minutes. Instead, she did the one thing money couldn't buy. She uncovered a secret so dark it nearly destroyed the Sterling dynasty. This isn't just a story about a waitress and a billionaire. It's about the lie that held them all captive. Location: the Rusty Spoon Diner. New Jersey time, 11:45 p.m. The smell of stale coffee and grease was permanently etched into Sarah Miller's skin. It was a scent that no amount of cheap lavender soap could wash away. At 28, Sarah looked older, her eyes rimmed with the kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. She adjusted her apron, wincing as the receipt machine screeched out another order. "Order up, Sarah. Table 4 needs refills, and the guy in the booth is complaining his fries are cold," shouted Mike, the cook, whose sweat-stained bandana had seen better days. "I'm going, Mike, I'm going," Sarah muttered, grabbing the coffee pot. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a cracked iPhone 8 she'd bought secondhand 3 years ago. She didn't have to look to know who it was. It was Mrs. Gable, her landlord. The rent was 4 days late. Again. Sarah had been a single mother since the day her high school sweetheart Jason decided that fatherhood interfered with his musical genius and skipped town, leaving her with a newborn, Leo, and a mountain of debt. Now Leo was 7, a sweet boy who needed braces and new sneakers, neither of which Sarah could afford on a waitress's salary and the occasional cleaning gig. The diner door chimed. The late-night rush usually brought in truckers and college kids, but tonight the atmosphere shifted instantly. 3 young women walked in. They didn't belong here. They were draped in cashmere and silk, their skin glowing with the kind of facials that cost more than Sarah's car. Leading the pack was a girl with platinum blonde hair, eyes like shards of ice, and a scowl that could curdle milk. It was Bella Sterling. Sarah knew the face. Everyone did. Bella was tabloid fodder. Page 6 had just run a story last week. Billionaire Arthur Sterling's daughter crashes Ferrari into Hampton's hedge. She was the princess of New York, known for terrorizing staff and partying until dawn. They sat at the only clean booth, wrinkling their noses. "God, Bella, why here?" one of the friends, a brunette clutching a Prada bag, whined. "It smells like poor people." "Because, Chloe, Daddy cut off my black card until morning," Bella snapped, her voice loud and imperious. "And I want a milkshake, a real one, not that organic sludge Chef Horn makes." Sarah took a deep breath. She walked over, pulling her notepad out. "Welcome to the Rusty Spoon. What can I get you?" Bella didn't look up. She was scrolling through Instagram on a phone case that probably cost more than Sarah's rent. "Strawberry shake, extra malt, fries, well done, and water, bottled. I don't drink tap." "We don't have bottled water," Sarah said politely, "just filtered." Bella finally looked up, her eyes narrowed. "Then go buy some. There's a gas station across the street." The table went silent. Sarah felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "I can't leave my shift to go shopping for you, miss. We have filtered water or soda." Bella laughed, a cruel tinkling sound. "Do you know who I am?" "I do," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "You're a customer in a diner in New Jersey. Do you want the shake or not?" Bella's friends gasped. No one spoke to Bella Sterling like that. Bella stared at Sarah, stunned. For a second, just a second, the mask of the spoiled brat slipped, revealing something else. Confusion. "Fine," Bella spat. "The shake. Hurry up. I'm aging just sitting here." Sarah walked away, her heart hammering. She needed this job. She couldn't afford to get fired for mouthing off to a billionaire's daughter. But as she scooped the ice cream, she watched Bella from the corner of her eye. The girl wasn't just mean. She was shaking. Her hands were trembling as she held her phone. She wasn't just a brat. She was on the edge of something dangerous. Sarah didn't know it yet, but that strawberry shake was about to change her life forever. A scared, angry child in pain. Sarah walked out from behind the counter. She didn't run. She didn't shout. She walked calmly, wiping her hands on her apron. "Hey," Sarah said softly. Bella swung the knife towards Sarah. "Stay away. I'll sue you. My dad will destroy you." "Okay," Sarah said, stopping just out of reach. "He can destroy me later. Right now, look at your hand." Bella blinked. "What?" "Your hand. You're squeezing that handle so hard your knuckles are white. It's got to hurt." Sarah's voice was the voice she used with Leo when he woke up from a nightmare. Low, grounded. "You don't want to hurt anyone, Bella. You're just tired. You're so tired of everyone looking at you, aren't you?" Bella's breath hitched. The wildness in her eyes flickered. "Shut up! You don't know me." "I know that look," Sarah said. "That's the look of someone who's screaming for help and nobody is listening because the music is too loud." Sarah took one step closer. "Give me the knife, and I'll make you the best grilled cheese you've ever had. No charge, off the menu, just for you." The tension in the room was suffocating. Big Al was ready to tackle the girl, but Sarah held Bella's gaze. "Just a grilled cheese," Sarah whispered, "and I'll listen. I won't ask for a selfie. I won't ask for money. I'll just listen." Bella's lip quivered. The knife lowered an inch, then another. Finally, it clattered to the linoleum floor. Bella collapsed into the booth, burying her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Sarah didn't hesitate. She slid into the booth next to the billionaire heiress, wrapped an arm around her shaking shoulders, and held her while she cried. The friends stood awkwardly, phones out, recording. "Put the phones away," Sarah ordered, her voice sharp as a whip, "or you leave." They put the phones away. An hour later, a black convoy of SUVs screeched to a halt outside the diner. Men in dark suits swarmed the entrance. The door opened and Arthur Sterling walked in. He was a giant of a man, immaculately dressed in a Tom Ford suit, but his face was pale. He had seen the live stream. He expected to find his daughter in handcuffs or the hospital. Instead, he found her in a booth, eating a grilled cheese sandwich, listening to the waitress talk about her son's obsession with dinosaurs. Bella looked calm. For the first time in years, she looked peaceful. Arthur stopped at the table. His security detail hovered behind him. "Bella?" Arthur asked, his voice gruff with worry. Bella looked up. The wall went back up instantly, but it was thinner this time. "I'm ready to go, Dad. Sarah says I need sleep." Arthur looked at Sarah. He looked at the ketchup on the wall, the stunned customers, and his daughter, who hadn't screamed at him upon sight. "Who are you?" Arthur asked Sarah. "I'm Sarah. I'm just a waitress," she said, standing up and handing him the bill. She had a shake and a grilled cheese. "That'll be $14.50. Arthur stared at her. He looked at the bill, then at his daughter, then back at Sarah. He pulled out a black American Express card. "Keep the change," he said. "I can't run this on the machine for a $14 tab, sir. Cash only for small orders." Arthur Sterling, a man who moved markets with a whisper, patted his pockets. He didn't carry cash. He looked helplessly at his security guard, who quickly handed Sarah a 20. "Thank you," Sarah said. "Have a good night." She turned to go back to the kitchen to clean up the mess. "Wait," Arthur said. Sarah turned around. "My daughter. She hasn't listened to anyone since her mother died," Arthur said, his voice low so the press outside wouldn't hear. "I have a proposition for you." "I'm not for sale, Mr. Sterling," Sarah said tiredly. "I don't want to buy you," Arthur said, his eyes intense. "I want to hire you. Bella needs a companion, someone real, someone she can't buy and can't scare. I'll pay you $10,000 a week." Sarah dropped her tray. The metal clang echoed through the silent diner. $10,000 a week. That was her rent for 6 months. That was Leo's braces. That was freedom. "I have a son," Sarah stammered. "I can't just move into your world." "Bring him," Arthur said. "He can attend the private academy on the estate. Please, Miss Miller, you're the only one who got her to put the knife down." Sarah looked at Bella, who was watching her with a strange, guarded hope. Then she thought of Mrs. Gable and the eviction notice. "When do I start?" Sarah asked. "Pack your bags," Arthur said. "The car is outside." Location: The Summit, upstate New York. Time: 2 days later. The iron gates of the summit were taller than the apartment building Sarah had lived in for the last 5 years. As the heavy metal swung open, revealing a winding driveway lined with century-old oaks, Sarah looked in the rearview mirror at her son. Leia was pressed against the glass of the luxury SUV, his eyes wide as saucers. "Mom," Leia whispered, "is that a castle? Does a king live here?" "Kind of, baby," Sarah said, though her stomach was doing somersaults. "Remember the rules. Be polite, say please and thank you, and don't touch anything that looks like it might break if you breathe on it." Arthur Sterling had sent a car that cost $250,000 to pick them up. Sarah had packed their entire lives into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. It felt meager. It felt like they were imposters sneaking into a royal ball. The main house came into view, a sprawling limestone mansion that looked more like a museum than a home. Servants were already lined up on the steps. As the car stopped, the door was pulled open by a stiff-backed butler. Sarah stepped out, clutching Leo's hand. Arthur Sterling was there, standing at the top of the stairs. But he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was a woman who looked like she had been carved out of marble. She was tall, wearing a tailored cream suit that probably cost more than Sarah's lifetime earnings. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her smile didn't reach her eyes.
"Welcome, Sarah," Arthur said, descending a few steps. He looked tired but relieved. "I trust the journey was smooth." "It was different," Sarah managed to smile. "This is my son, Leo." Leo hid behind Sarah's leg. "A child?" the woman in the cream suit. Her voice was smooth, like velvet wrapped around a dagger. "Arthur mentioned you were bringing baggage, but I didn't realize it would be quite so literal." Sarah bristled. "He's my son, not baggage." Arthur cleared his throat, sensing the immediate tension. "Sarah, this is Elellanena Vance. She is my chief of staff and manages the household affairs. Elena, Sarah is here to help with Bella. She has full authority regarding Bella's schedule and care." Elena's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Jealousy, of course. "Though I must say, Arthur, hiring a waitress to handle a psychological crisis seems unconventional. Dr. Errington was a Harvard specialist, and Bella broke his nose." "Dr. Errington didn't listen," Arthur said sharply. "Sarah did." "That's enough, Elena. Show them to the guest wing. I have a board meeting in 10 minutes. Arthur turned to leave, distracted as always by the buzzing of his phone. As soon as he was gone, Elena's posture shifted. The professional mask dropped just a fraction. "Listen to me," Elena hissed, stepping close enough that Sarah could smell her expensive Chanel perfume. "I don't know what game you played to get Arthur to sign that check, but you won't last. Bella eats weak women for breakfast. I've been running this house for 10 years. I'm the one who will be Mrs. Sterling one day. Don't get comfortable." Sarah tightened her grip on Leo's hand. She remembered the look on Bella's face in the diner, the fear, and she looked at this woman, this cold, calculating statue. "I'm not here to marry him, Miss Vance," Sarah said coolly. "I'm here to do a job. Which way is our room?" Elena sneered and snapped her fingers at a maid. "Take them to the East Wing, and make sure the boy doesn't touch the Faber collection in the hall." The room was a suite, larger than Sarah's entire apartment. Leo immediately ran to jump on the king-sized bed, laughing as he sank into the down comforter. But Sarah couldn't relax. She unpacked quickly, put on a fresh blouse, and told Leo to play with his tablet. "I have to go find the princess," Sarah told him. "Stay here. Lock the door." Sarah found Bella in the solarium at the back of the house. The girl was sitting on a velvet chaise lounge, staring out at the manicured gardens. She was smoking a cigarette, tapping the ash onto the pristine marble floor. "You're not supposed to smoke in here," Sarah said, walking in. Bella didn't look up. "I'm not supposed to do a lot of things. And yet, here we are. Your dad pays me to make sure you're okay. Lung cancer isn't okay." Bella turned, her eyes narrowed. "Look, waitress, the diner was a moment of weakness. I was hungry. Don't think we're friends. You're just another paid babysitter. I give you 3 days before you run crying to Daddy." I've worked double shifts on my feet for 10 years while getting yelled at by drunk truckers, Sarah said, walking over and plucking the cigarette from Bella's fingers. She dropped it into a nearby glass of water. It hissed. You think a spoiled teenager with an attitude problem scares me? Honey, I'm from Jersey. You're going to have to do better than that. Bella stood up, towering over Sarah in her heels. You have no idea what you've walked into. This house isn't a home. It's a war zone. And you brought your kid here. You're stupid. Why is it a war zone, Bella? Sarah asked, ignoring the insult. Is it because of Elena? Bella flinched. The name hit a nerve. Don't say her name, Bella whispered, her bravado vanishing. She hears everything. Who hears everything? Elena, Bella hissed, looking around the room as if the walls had ears. She wants me gone. She wants me in a boarding school in Switzerland or a psych ward so she can have him all to herself. She's the one who tells Dad I'm crazy. She's the one who fires the staff if they're nice to me. Sarah studied the girl. Bella wasn't just acting out. She was cornered. Well, Sarah said, crossing her arms, she can try to fire me, but I'm not staff, Bella. I'm the only person in this house who doesn't want your father's money or your father's hand in marriage. I'm just here for the check to fix my kid's teeth. So, you and we're going to survive this together. Bella stared at her, stunned by the blunt honesty. Now, Sarah said, clapping her hands, I saw a pool out back. Go put on a swimsuit. We're going swimming. I don't swim, Bella scoffed. You do today. 10 minutes or I start singing opera and I'm tone deaf. For the first time, the corner of Bella's mouth twitched upward. Location, the Sterling estate. Time, 1 week later. The truce lasted exactly 6 days. In that time, Sarah had established a routine. She woke Bella up at 9 a.m., a vast improvement from 1 p.m., made her eat a protein-rich breakfast instead of just coffee, and forced her to engage in actual activities. They hiked the estate grounds. They played tennis, badly. Sarah even got Bella to help Leo build a Lego castle one rainy afternoon. Arthur Sterling was amazed. He watched from his office window as Bella actually laughed while chasing Leo around the fountain. He hadn't heard his daughter laugh in 3 years. But Elellanena Vance was watching too, and she wasn't smiling. On Tuesday afternoon, Sarah was in the kitchen helping the chef prepare a snack. She had insisted on making the staff coffee, a gesture that had won over everyone except Elena's loyalists. Suddenly, a scream echoed from the main hall. Thief! Little thief! Sarah dropped her spoon and ran. She found Leo in the grand foyer, cowering against a pillar. Elena was standing over him, holding him by the collar of his t-shirt. Bella was at the top of the stairs, freezing in horror. Get your hands off him, Sarah roared, a sound so primal that stopped every servant in the house. She flew across the marble floor and shoved Elena backward. Elena stumbled, her heels clacking against the stone. How dare you touch him? Sarah stood between Elena and her son, her chest heaving.
Your little brat stole from Mr. Sterling, Elellanena screeched, pointing a manicured finger. She held up a gold Patek Philippe watch. I caught him slipping this into his pocket in Arthur's study. Leo was sobbing, shaking his head. I didn't. I was looking for the bathroom and she put it there. Liar, Elellanena shouted. Like mother, like son. Grifters, both of you. Arthur burst out of his office, phone in hand. What is going on here? I caught the boy stealing your watch, Arthur, Elellanena said, smoothing her skirt, instantly composing herself into the victim. I told you it was a mistake to bring these people into your home. They are common criminals. Arthur looked at Leo, who was burying his face in Sarah's apron, and then at the watch in Elellena's hand. His face hardened. He hated theft. It was the one thing he couldn't forgive. Sarah, Arthur said, his voice cold, is this true? No, Sarah said firmly. Leo knows better. He doesn't steal. I saw him, Arthur, Elellanena lied smoothly. He was by the desk. The watch was in his pocket. Pack your bags, Arthur said, looking away. I can't have this. Not in my house. Dad, no! The voice came from the stairs. Bella ran down, her face flushed with anger. She didn't run to her father, she ran to Leo. She knelt down and hugged the crying boy. "He didn't steal it," Bella said, looking up at her father with fierce eyes. "I saw the whole thing from the balcony." Elelena's eyes widened. "Bella, darling, you're confused." "Shut up, Elellanena," Bella screamed. "I saw you. You walked out of the study. You called Leo over to ask him about his shoes, and you slipped the watch into his hoodie pocket while he wasn't looking. You planted it." The room went dead silent. "Bella," Arthur said slowly, "are you sure?" "I swear on Mom's grave," Bella said. Her voice broke. "She did it because she hates Sarah, because Sarah's the only one who actually cares about me." "Elellanena wants me to be sick, Dad. She wants me to be the broken daughter so she can be the perfect wife." Elelena's face turned a blotchy red. "Arthur, the girl is unstable. She's hallucinating again. You know, Dr. Arrington said—" "Check the cameras," Sarah interrupted. Her voice was calm, deadly. Everyone looked at her. "There's a security camera right there," Sarah pointed to a small black dome in the corner of the ceiling. "It points directly at the study door. Check the footage, Mr. Sterling. If my son stole it, I'll walk to the police station myself. But if she planted it," Sarah glared at Elellanena, "then I want an apology." Elellanena went pale. She had forgotten the new security system Arthur had installed last month. Arthur looked at Elellanena. Her reaction told him everything he needed to know. The color had drained from her face. "Elellanena," Arthur said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register, "go to your office. Wait for me there." "Arthur, please, I was just trying to protect—" "Go," Arthur roared. Elellanena fled. Arthur looked at Sarah and Leo. He looked ashamed. A man who controlled billions of dollars, humbled by a waitress and a 7-year-old. Arthur started. "I apologize, Leo. I am so sorry." Sarah picked Leo up. "It's not Leo you should be worried about, Mr. Sterling. It's your daughter. You just almost fired the only lifeline she has because you trusted a snake over your own child." Sarah turned to Bella. "Thank you, Bella. That was brave." Bella shrugged, wiping her eyes, trying to look tough. "Whatever. The kid is okay. I hate liars." That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She sat by the window watching the moon. She realized then that this wasn't just a job. They were in danger. Elellanena wouldn't take this lying down. She had been humiliated. She would strike back, and next time it wouldn't be a clumsy frame job. It would be something much worse. And Sarah was right. Location: the Grand Ballroom, the Sterling Estate. Time: 3 days later. The annual Sterling Foundation Gala was the event of the New York social season. Senators, celebrities, and business tycoons descended on the estate. It was a masquerade ball, a sea of silk, diamonds, and hidden faces. Arthur had insisted Sarah attend. "You are part of the household now," he had said. He even bought her a dress, a stunning midnight blue gown that fit her like a glove. Sarah felt like Cinderella, but she kept her guard up. Elellanena was still there. Arthur hadn't fired her. She knew too many corporate secrets to be let go overnight. He had put her on probation, limiting her access to the house, but tonight she was running the event. Bella was refusing to go down. "I look fat," Bella said, staring at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a red dress that was beautiful, but she was picking at her skin, anxiety radiating off her. "And everyone is going to stare. They all know about the DUI. They all think I'm a train wreck." "Let them stare," Sarah said, fastening a diamond necklace around Bella's neck. "You're a Sterling. You're a warrior. And besides," Sarah winked, "I'll be right there. If anyone looks at you sideways, I'll spill red wine on them."
"Accidentally, of course," Bella giggled. "You would, wouldn't you? In a heartbeat." They descended the grand staircase together. When they entered the ballroom, the room didn't go silent, but heads turned. Bella Sterling, the wild child, looked regal, and beside her, the unknown woman in blue looked like a movie star. Arthur walked over, ignoring the socialites trying to grab his attention. "You both look breathtaking." "Don't get used to it, Dad," Bella grumbled, though she took his arm. The night seemed to be going perfectly until the toast. Elena took the stage. She looked immaculate in gold, holding a microphone. "Welcome, everyone," Elena purred. Tonight is about charity, about giving to those less fortunate. Which brings me to a special introduction. We have a new member of the staff who was a true charity case herself. Sarah froze. The room went quiet. Elena smiled viciously, looking directly at Sarah. We are so progressive here at the Sterling estate. We believe in second chances, even for uneducated waitresses who can barely pay their rent. Let's give a round of applause for Sarah, our new hired help. It's so brave of Arthur to let the help mingle with the guests. It was a social execution. In this world, being called the help in public was a death sentence. The elites whispered. The illusion of Sarah's elegance was shattered. They looked at her like she was a bug that had crawled onto the carpet. Bella's hand squeezed Sarah's arm. "Don't let her win." Bella whispered. But Sarah didn't shrink. She didn't run. She remembered the diner. She remembered the insults she'd taken for years. This was nothing. Sarah walked up to the stage. The room gasped. Was she going to fight her? Sarah took the microphone from a stunned Elena. "Thank you, Elena," Sarah said, her voice amplified, steady and clear. "You're right. I am a waitress. I have been for 10 years. I've cleaned tables, I've mopped floors, and I've served people who didn't look me in the eye." She looked out at the crowd of billionaires. "And I'm proud of it, because when you serve people, you learn who they really are. You learn that money doesn't buy class, it doesn't buy kindness, and it certainly doesn't buy loyalty." Sarah turned to look at Elena. "I may be the help, Elena, but I help people. I don't tear them down to make myself feel taller. I don't plant watches on 7-year-olds, and I don't use a charity gala to bully a single mother." Sarah turned back to Arthur, who was watching her with an expression of absolute awe. "Mr. Sterling, you have a beautiful home, but you have a termite problem." She handed the mic back to Elena, who stood there with her mouth open, looking like a fish out of water. The room was silent for a second. Then a slow clap started. It was Bella. Bella was clapping, a huge grin on her face. Then Arthur joined in, then the mayor of New York. Then the whole room erupted in applause. They loved a comeback. They loved a fighter. Elena fled the stage in disgrace. Later that night, the party was winding down. Sarah was exhausted. She went up to check on Lau, then headed to her room. As she passed Bella's room, she heard a strange noise, a rhythmic beeping. The door was ajar. Sarah peeked in. Bella was asleep, still in her red dress, exhausted from the emotion of the night. But the sound was coming from the vent above her bed. Sarah dragged a chair over. She climbed up and peered through the slats of the air vent. There, hidden deep inside the ductwork, was a small black device with a blinking red light. It wasn't a smoke detector. Sarah used a nail file to unscrew the vent cover. She pulled the device out. It was a high-tech audio recorder, and attached to it a small canister connected to the airflow. Sarah sniffed the canister. It smelled sweet, sickly, like ether and something chemical. Her blood ran cold. Bella wasn't just being watched, she was being drugged. A slow release of gas into her room every night to keep her groggy, emotional, and unstable. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "Put that down." Sarah spun around on the chair. Elena was standing in the doorway. She wasn't wearing her gala gown anymore. She was wearing black, and in her hand she held a small silver pistol. "You really should have stayed in the diner, Sarah," Elena said, her eyes dead and cold. "Now you've seen too much." Location: Bella's bedroom, the Sterling estate. Time: 1:15 a.m. The silence in the room was heavier than the gun in Elena's hand. The silver barrel glinted in the moonlight, pointed directly at Sarah's chest. Sarah stood on the chair, clutching the canister of gas, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. But her face remained stone cold. She had faced eviction notices, abusive ex-boyfriends, and empty fridges. She knew that showing fear now was a death sentence. "Get down," Elena commanded, her voice devoid of the smooth professional cadence she used in public. This was the real Elena, raw, jagged, and terrifying. "Slowly. If you drop that canister, I'll shoot you before it hits the floor." Sarah stepped down, her knees trembling slightly, but she kept her eyes locked on Elena. "What is this, Elena? What have you been doing to her?" Elena laughed, a dry, humorless sound. She motioned with the gun for Sarah to move away from the door and toward the window. "You think Bella is crazy.
Everyone does. That was the point. It's a psychotropic compound, odyllis mostly. In small doses, it causes anxiety, paranoia, nightmares. In larger doses, well, it mimics schizophrenia perfectly. Sarah felt sick. You've been gaslighting her, literally. You've been poisoning a child for years. She's not a child. She's an obstacle. Elena hissed, stepping closer. I spent 15 years building Arthur's empire. I managed his schedule, his life, his grief when his wife died. I was the one who was there. And what do I get? A salary. I deserve the name. I deserve the legacy. But as long as the grieving daughter is around, Arthur won't move on. He's too busy playing nursemaid to a brat.
So you decided to drive her insane? Sarah asked, stalling. She needed time. She needed a weapon so you could ship her off to an asylum and marry the grieving father. It was working, Elena spat, until you showed up with your grilled cheese sandwiches and your pathetic maternal instincts. You started clearing the fog. You gave her confidence. You ruined everything. And what now? Sarah asked, glancing at the sleeping form of Bella. You shoot me? Arthur will know. The police will know. Oh no, Sarah. You're a desperate, broke waitress, Elena smiled, her eyes gleaming with malice. The story will be simple. You were caught stealing jewelry. I confronted you. You panicked, pulled a gun you brought from that trashy neighborhood of yours. We struggled. You shot Bella, then turned the gun on yourself out of guilt, a tragic murder-suicide. Arthur won't believe that, Sarah said defiantly. Arthur believes what I tell him to believe, Elena screamed. I own him. No, a weak voice croaked from the bed. You don't. Elena spun around. Bella was sitting up. She looked pale, her eyes heavy, but she was awake. She had heard enough. Bella, darling, go back to sleep, Elena said, raising the gun towards the girl. It's just a bad dream. I heard you, Bella whispered, tears streaming down her face. You made me sick. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was broken. You are broken, Elena yelled. You're a weak, spoiled little hay, Sarah shouted, grabbing a heavy crystal vase from the vanity table and hurling it. It was a desperate move. The vase missed Elena's head by inches, smashing into the wall. But the distraction worked. Elena turned back to Sarah, firing the gun. Bang! The sound was deafening in the enclosed room. A porcelain lamp next to Sarah exploded, shards slicing into her cheek. Sarah didn't stop. She launched herself at Elena. They crashed onto the floor. Sarah was younger and stronger, but Elena was fighting with the desperation of a woman with nothing to lose. The gun skidded across the floor, sliding under the bed. Elena clawed at Sarah's face, her nails digging into Sarah's eyes. Sarah grunted, driving her shoulder into Elena's ribs. You will never hurt her again, Sarah screamed, pinning Elena down. But Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a switchblade. She slashed wildly. Sarah threw her arm up to protect her throat. The blade sliced deep into Sarah's forearm. Blood sprayed onto the white carpet. Sarah cried out in pain, her grip loosening. Elena kicked Sarah off and scrambled toward the gun under the bed. No! Bella screamed. Bella, still groggy from the gas, threw herself out of bed. She grabbed the heavy canister Sarah had placed on the nightstand, the very poison meant to destroy her, and swung it with both hands. Clang! The metal canister connected with the back of Elena's head just as she reached for the gun. Elena collapsed face down on the carpet, motionless. The room fell into a terrifying silence broken only by Sarah's heavy breathing and the dripping of blood from her arm. Bella dropped the canister, her hands shaking violently. She looked at Sarah. Is she dead? Sarah scrambled over, kicking the gun away. She checked Elena's pulse. No, she's out cold, but she's alive. Sarah grabbed a silk scarf from the chair and tightly bound Elena's hands behind her back. Then she ripped a strip from her own dress to wrap her bleeding arm. Bella, Sarah said, her voice trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. Are you okay? Bella crawled across the floor and collapsed into Sarah's uninjured arm. She hated me. She really hated me. I know, baby, I know. Sarah rocked her, smoothing her hair. It's over. I promise it's over. Suddenly, the door burst open. Arthur Sterling stood there wearing a silk robe, his eyes wild with panic. Behind him stood the head of security, gun drawn. They had heard the shot. Arthur froze. He saw the shattered lamp. He saw the blood on the carpet. He saw Elena unconscious and bound. And he saw Sarah bleeding, holding his daughter. "Daddy!" Bella cried out, a sound of pure heartbreak. Arthur ran to them, dropping to his knees. "What happened, Sarah? You're bleeding!" "It was Elena," Bella sobbed, burying her face in his father's chest. "It was Elena the whole time, Dad. The gas, the poison, she wanted me dead." Arthur looked at Sarah, his eyes pleading for an explanation. Sarah, fighting off a wave of blood loss, pointed to the vent and the device. She was dosing Bella with psychotropics through the ventilation system. "Arthur, she admitted it. She was going to kill us both and frame me." Arthur Sterling, the man of steel, looked at the device, then at the woman he had trusted for 15 years. His face crumbled. The horror of it, the betrayal, the proximity of evil to his child broke him. He reached out and took Sarah's hand, his grip gentle but desperate.
"You saved her," he whispered, tears spilling from his eyes. "You saved my little girl." "I just did my job," Sarah whispered. Then the room went black. Sarah Miller, the waitress from New Jersey, finally fainted. Location, New York Supreme Court time. 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. Every major news outlet in the country had fought for a seat. They called it the trial of the century. Elellanena Vance, the woman who had stood silently behind one of America's most powerful men for a decade, sat at the defense table. But she didn't look like the Ice Queen anymore. The months in Rikers Island had stripped away the designer suits and the facials, leaving a haggard, desperate woman in a frantic state of denial. Sarah sat in the front row, her hand tightly clasped in Arthur's. To her right sat Bella. The transformation in the girl was miraculous. Gone was the pale, shivering, angry teenager. In her place sat a young woman with clear skin, bright eyes, and a posture of steel. She wore a simple black dress, mourning the mother she had finally learned the truth about, but celebrating the survival of her own mind. The district attorney, a sharp woman named Harriet Cole, had been ruthless. They hadn't just pinned the poisoning on Elena, they had dug up the past. The exhumation of Margaret Sterling's body had been the final nail in the coffin. Traces of the same synthetic compound found in Bella's vent were found in Margaret's bone marrow. It was time for the victim impact statements. Elena's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Harrison silenced him with a glare. "The witness will speak." Bella stood up. She walked to the stand, not with the shuffle of a victim, but with the stride of a Sterling. She looked directly at Elena. "For years," Bella began, her voice steady, amplified through the silent courtroom, "you made me believe I was broken. You whispered in my ear that I was crazy, that my father was disappointed in me, that I was a burden. You drugged the air I breathed to steal my sanity so you could steal my inheritance." Elena scoffed audibly. "I was trying to help you, you ungrateful brat." "Silence," the judge roared. Bella didn't flinch. "You didn't help me. You killed my mother, and you tried to kill the only person who saw me as a human being, Sarah." Bella pointed to Sarah in the front row. "You thought you were the powerful one because you manipulated people, but you're weak, Elena. You're weak because you need to destroy others to feel tall. And I'm the daughter of Arthur Sterling and Margaret Sterling, and I am unbreakable." Bella sat down. The jury looked visibly moved. Some were wiping away tears. Judge Harrison adjusted his glasses. He looked at Elena with pure disdain. "Elellanena Vance, the evidence is overwhelming. You betrayed a position of absolute trust. You murdered a wife and mother and systematically tortured a child for your own gain. There is no rehabilitation for a soul this corroded." The judge took a breath. "I sentence you to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. You will die in prison, Miss Vance." Elena snapped. She leapt up, knocking her chair over. "No, you can't do this. I built that company. Arthur, look at me. I did it for you." She was weak. Margaret was weak. Marshall swarmed her. As they dragged her out screaming and kicking, Arthur didn't look away. He watched the woman he had trusted for 15 years disappear through the side door. Then he turned to Sarah. "It's over," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "It's finally over." Sarah squeezed his hand. The transition. 3 months later, life at the Sterling estate had changed. The silence was gone. The house was filled with the sounds of Leo running down the hallways, usually chased by the new puppy Arthur had bought him, a golden retriever named Buster. But Sarah was struggling. She was sitting in Arthur's study, looking at a check he had placed on the desk. It was for $5 million. "Arthur, I can't take this," Sarah said, pushing it back. Sarah, please, Arthur pleaded, pouring 2 cups of tea. You saved my family. You took a bullet. Well, a knife for us. It's a thank you. It feels like a payoff, Sarah said, standing up and walking to the window. I've worked for every dime I've ever made. If I take this, I'm just a charity case again. I'm the help who got lucky. Arthur walked over and turned her around. You are not the help. You are the heart of this house. But I understand you have pride. So what do you want? If you won't take the money, what can I do? Sarah smiled. She had been thinking about this. The Westy Spoon, she said. The diner? Arthur blinked, confused. You want to go back to waiting tables? No, Sarah said, her eyes lighting up. I want to own it. It's for sale. The owner, Mr. Henderson, wants to retire to Florida. I want to buy it, renovate it, and run it properly. Good food, fair wages for the staff, a place where single moms can bring their kids and get a decent meal. But I want it to be mine. Loan me the money for the down payment. I'll pay you back with interest. Arthur stared at her. He saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had faced down Elena's gun. Done, Arthur said.
But on one condition. What? I get free coffee for life. Sarah laughed. Deal. But only if you wait in line like everyone else. The grand finale. 1 year later. Location, the Sterling Miller Gallery, Soho. The evening air in New York was crisp as the black limousine pulled up to the curb. Flash bulbs erupted like lightning. But tonight, the press wasn't looking for scandal. They were looking for art. Bella Sterling was debuting her first solo exhibition, Shadows and Light. Sarah stepped out of the car first. She looked stunning in a deep emerald gown that complemented her eyes. She reached back and helped Leo out. He was 8 now, wearing a tuxedo and looking very important as he held the leash for Buster, who was wearing a matching bow tie. Finally, Arthur emerged. He looked younger than he had in years. The weight of the world was off his shoulders. Ready? Arthur asked, offering Sarah his arm. Ready, she smiled. The gallery was packed. The elite of New York were there, but so were the staff from the diner. Mike the cook was wearing a suit that was a size too small, holding a glass of champagne gingerly. The art was breathtaking. Bella had channeled her trauma onto the canvas. There were dark, swirling abstracts representing the gas and the confusion, but as viewers moved through the room, the paintings became brighter, sharper. The crowd gathered around the centerpiece of the collection, a massive canvas covered by a velvet sheet. Bella stepped up to a small podium. She looked radiant. Thank you all for coming, Bella said, her voice clear. For a long time, I couldn't see the world clearly. I was trapped in a fog, but someone came into that fog and held my hand. Someone taught me that family isn't just blood, it's the people who bleed for you. Bella walked over to the covered painting. This is dedicated to the woman who saved my life, the woman who taught me that a grilled cheese sandwich can fix a bad day and that courage is stronger than money. She pulled the cord. The velvet fell away. The crowd gasped. The painting was a masterpiece of realism and emotion. It depicted the interior of a diner late at night. In the center stood a woman in a stained apron. Sarah. She wasn't depicted as tired or downtrodden. She was painted with a halo of golden light from the diner signs, standing protectively in front of a frightened girl in the booth. In one hand, the woman held an order pad. Her other hand was outstretched, offering kindness. The title plaque read simply, "The Waitress, the Queen." Sarah brought a hand to her mouth, tears instantly spilling over. "Oh, brava." Arthur wrapped his arm around her waist. "You captured you perfectly." "I look strong," Sarah whispered. "You are the strongest person I know," Arthur said. He turned her to face him, ignoring the hundreds of people watching. The room went silent, sensing the moment. "Sarah," Arthur said, his voice trembling slightly, "a year ago I hired you to handle a crisis. I thought I was solving a problem. I didn't know I was meeting my destiny." He reached into his pocket. Leo grinned and gave a thumbs up to his mom. Arthur dropped to one knee. The collective intake of breath from the crowd sucked the air out of the room. "You didn't just save my daughter, Sarah. You saved me. You brought life back into a house that was a moralium. You taught a billionaire that he was poor without love.
I love you, Sarah Miller. I love your son. I love your stubbornness. I even love your diner coffee." Arthur opened a small velvet box. Inside sat a ring, not a gaudy diamond, but a rare deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, echoing the color of the dress she wore the night she fought for them. "Will you make me the luckiest man on earth? Will you marry me?" Sarah looked down at him. She looked at the painting of her former self. She looked at Bella, who was crying, happy tears, and Leo, who was bouncing on his heels. She realized she wasn't leaving her old life behind. She was bringing the best parts of it, her strength, her heart, into a new one. "I still get to work the lunch rush on Tuesdays?" Sarah choked out, smiling through her tears. "I wouldn't dare stop you," Arthur laughed. "Then yes," Sarah whispered. Then louder, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Arthur stood up and kissed her, lifting her off the ground as the gallery erupted in applause. Leo ran over and hugged their legs, and Bella joined the embrace, finally completing the circle. They were a family, not bound by blood or money or contracts. They were bound by the truth that they had walked through the fire together and come out the other side unbroken. And that is the incredible story of Sarah and the Sterlings. It just goes to show that sometimes the strongest heroes don't wear capes, they wear aprons. Sarah proved that integrity, bravery, and a mother's love are worth more than all the billions in the bank. What do you think? Would you have forgiven Elena, or did she get exactly what she deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of drama and justice, please smash that like button.
It really helps the channel grow and lets us know you want more stories like this. Don't forget to share this video with a friend who needs a win today. And subscribe with notifications on. We have a shocking story coming next week about a homeless man who wins the lottery only to find his long-lost family at his door. Or are they? You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next